Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission today is, well, it's a rigorous one. We're setting aside the usual topics. We're diving deep into the very nature of contradiction itself. Our primary source for this is a really insightful collection called 108 Paradoxes. And the approach here is key. It's set by the source itself. We are explicitly not trying to solve these things. The book suggests we should see a paradox as, and I love this quote, a door that refuses to be either open or closed. Our job is just to stand there at that threshold and see what the struggle to open it reveals about the one who's pushing. About you.
Exactly. And that's what's so fascinating. These aren't just, intellectual party tricks. They're fault lines. They're these places where our very sophisticated systems language, formal logic, suddenly trip over their own feet. And they almost always trip up when they come face to face with consciousness, with selfhood, with time. Every one of these paradoxes has its official face, right? The little puzzle you try to crack. But underneath, there's always this hidden message. The source calls it what they do not say. And that's what we're after. That deeper whisper that only emerges when you let the puzzle stay a puzzle.
Okay, let's unpack that. I want to start with the biggest pattern we found in the source, which we're calling the observer problem. This is that classic trap where just looking at something changes it. Especially when you're looking at yourself. And the classic example, of course, is the liar's paradox. This sentence is false. We all know the loop. If it's true, it must be false. If it's false, then it must be true. It's a perfect logical knot.
And it's not just a toy. This thing has a serious history. In more formal versions, it almost derailed the foundations of mathematics in the early 20th century. Bertrand Russell was famously tormented by it. And it just shows the danger of self-reference.
Wait, why was it such a threat to mathematics? Russell was trying to build a completely consistent system, right?
Correct. And the moment you allow a set to talk about itself or a statement to contain its own truth value, the whole system can just collapse. The real insight, what it does not say, is that it's not about lying. It's that a system cannot contain its own definition without breaking. There has to be a boundary. And here's why that's so important for you, for anyone listening. You are a self-referential system. Consciousness examining consciousness. So the liar's paradox is actually a pretty stunning portrait of the I that asks, what am I?
Oh, I see. So every time I try to define myself like I am anxious or I am a good person, the I, doing the defining, is standing outside the definition looking at it.
Precisely. You become a living sentence that can't settle on true or false. The subject and object are tangled. And this is where, ancient wisdom traditions have been pointing for centuries. The Upanishads use the phrase neti neti, not this, not this. It's the mystical version of this same logical failure.
Right.
You can only say what you aren't because the moment you say what you are, you've missed the one who's speaking.
That idea of a fluid, unpinnable identity, it leads us straight to the Ship of Theseus. The story is, over time, every single plank of this famous ship is replaced. Is it still the same ship?
Right. It's a great one because it feels so real. And then Thomas Hobbes comes along and adds the killer twist. What if you saved all the old planks? You used them to build a second ship. Now which one is the real Ship of Theseus?
Yeah, you're stuck. If it's about the original matter, the rebuilt one wins. But if it's about the form, the function, the continuity, the first one wins.
But the hidden message, the silence in the paradox, is that it assumes identity is a property that lives inside the object. It's not. The ship doesn't have an identity. It's just wood. Identity is a story that observers tell. We're the ones who insist on that continuity. And here's the punchline. You are the Ship of Theseus. Your cells are constantly being replaced. Your memories are literally rewritten every time you access them. Your personality shifts. So what's left? Only this sense of continuity. A story told by a narrator who is also changing about a character called you.
That's a powerful way to put it. And the last piece of this observer problem, which is a bit different, is Schrodinger's cat. The cat's in a box. A quantum event might kill it. Until we look, it's described as both alive and dead at the same time.
The official puzzle is about quantum mechanics, sure, but what the source points to is the role of the witness. The observation itself seems to collapse the wave of possibility into a single actuality. It's consciousness poking its head into physics.
But I thought you said these paradoxes are more about our internal logic failing, not the outside world.
They are. The cat is either alive or dead inside that box. The paradox only exists for us in our description of it. It suggests that our logical and physical models are incomplete without accounting for the act of observation. The liar, Theseus, the cat, they all have this ghost in the machine, the observer.
Okay, let's shift gears. From the self-referential trap to what we're calling the poverty of categories. When our models fail reality, this is where our neat little boxes for the world just don't fit. And we have to start with Zeno, Achilles and the tortoise. Achilles gives the tortoise a head start. To catch up, he has to get to where the tortoise is. But by then, the tortoise has moved a little bit further, and so on, forever. The math implies he can never catch up.
Right, the math is sound, and that's what's so jarring. It implies motion is impossible.
Hmm.
But Zeno wasn't an idiot. He knew Achilles wins the race. He was making a brilliant point. The models we use to describe reality are not reality itself. Infinite divisibility. That's a property of our mathematics, of our concepts. It's not necessarily a property of space and time as we actually live them.
So we confuse the map for the territory. The model, which is useful, starts to contradict our actual lived experience of just running.
Exactly. The whole paradox just vanishes the moment you stop thinking and start running. There's that great story about the Zen master who was asked about Zeno. He just stood up, walked across the room, sat down, and said, refuted. The act itself dissolves the problem.
That brings us to the Soreitz paradox, or the heap paradox. It goes like this. One grain of sand is not a heap. Adding one grain can't turn a non-heap into a heap. Therefore, no matter how many grains you add, you can never logically form a heap.
And yet we all know what a heap of sand is. We see them all the time. So what's breaking here is our logic when it's applied to a continuous, fuzzy world. The paradox reveals that boundaries are not found, they are made. Words like heap or bald or rich or tall, these are just convenient, fuzzy categories we lay on top of a seamless reality.
This feels hugely relevant. I mean, when exactly did you go from being young to old? When did a friendship become serious? There's no single moment.
There isn't. The paradox is a reminder that so many of the identities you worry about, successful, a failure, whatever, are just heaps. They're labels you or society decided to apply. The reality is just a smooth gradient. There's an old saying, ask when the river becomes the sea, and you will search forever. Ask where you are standing, and the question dissolves.
Let's shift now to something really practical, a pattern we've called the pursuer's trap. This is all about how the self gets in its own way. And the main one here is the paradox of hedonism. The direct, desperate pursuit of happiness is the surest way to make it disappear. We all know it comes as a byproduct of other things, meaningful work, relationships, but the moment you target it directly, it's gone.
And if you look at the architecture of the self, you can see why. Happiness is a state that is fundamentally incompatible with a certain kind of self-focused grasping, the part of you that's desperately trying to be happy. That grasping, monitoring self is the very thing that repels happiness. It's like trying to find peace by wanting peace really, really badly. The wanting itself isn't peaceful. You've already lost. The ego's craving structure is the very thing that obstructs the thing it craves.
That makes sense. But a listener might say, well, don't I need to pursue the things that bring happiness, like a good relationship? That takes effort.
Of course, that's the nuance. You pursue the means, not the emotional end state. You work on honest communication, not on feeling happy in the relationship. Happiness is the shadow cast by that engagement. The paradox isn't against effort. It's against making the feeling the target.
Which sets up the paradox of control perfectly. We see it everywhere. The more you try to micromanage an outcome, an archer aiming too hard, an insomniac trying to force sleep, the less control you have.
This is such a core psychological mechanism. So often, what we call preparation or prudence is really just anxiety management in disguise. The act of trying to control is a declaration of no confidence in the process. The most powerful move is often the ability to let go of your attachment to the outcome. When the speaker stops trying to remember every word and just speaks, the message flows.
But how do you let go? That's the ultimate trap, isn't it? Trying to let go is just another form of control.
That's it. That's the heart of it. A clenched fist cannot be opened by the fist itself. The command open is just more clenching. Letting go isn't something the controller does. It's what happens when awareness sees the clenching for what it is, and that tension just softens on its own. It's a release, not an action.
Okay, let's go for the big ones in our final section. The scaffolding of now and the collapse of the seeker. We have to start with the most dramatic. The grandfather paradox. You travel back in time, kill your grandfather, and therefore you were never born to travel back in time.
It's a perfect, unbreakable loop. But the source asks, what does this loop really tell us? It tells us that the paradox only exists if you assume time is like a landscape, a place you can visit. But what if the now is not a slice, but all there is? If reality is just this one ongoing present process, then traveling to the past isn't impossible because of a logical contradiction. It's impossible because it's a category error.
A category error. What does that mean in simple terms?
It means you're mixing up two different kinds of things. You're treating time, which is a process, as if it were space, a place. You can move around in space, but time is the movement. The grandfather paradox is just a beautiful proof by absurdity that our simple, linear model of time is broken. There is no there to go back to.
The now is the only scaffolding there is.
Okay.
Let's connect that to the spiritual seeker with the ultimate paradox, the paradox of seeking. If you're already whole or free, why are you seeking? But if you seek, you just confirm that you aren't.
This one is maybe the sharpest of them all. And here's the monster at the bottom of it. The seeker of freedom is the only prisoner. The act of seeking, that feeling of I'm here and what I want is over there, is the cage. That wanting creates the illusion of distance, of time, and that illusion sustains the me who isn't free yet. So the more intensely you seek, the stronger you build the walls of the prison. The illusion only dissolves when the seeking stops.
But that feeling of being incomplete feels so real. Why does the seeking feel so necessary?
Because we think the seeker is real. But the seeker is just a construct, a thought. The source uses a great analogy, a dream looking for waking. The dream character can't find waking. Waking is what's left when the dream is seen for what it is.
And if we push on that last piece of identity, the seeker itself, we get to the final challenge. The paradox of no self, anatta.
Right, the statement, there is no self, seems to need a self to say it. But when you actually look, what do you find? You don't find a little person in your head pulling the levers. You just find looking happening, thinking happening, experiencing happening. The self was never an experience. It was always a conclusion drawn after the fact. The paradox only binds you if you insist that there has to be a fixed I at the center of it all.
So what's the takeaway from this whole journey? We've gone from seeing paradoxes as puzzles to seeing them as mirrors. And the problem isn't the mirror. It's the rigidity of the face looking into it. The fixed identity that needs everything to be either true or false.
Yes, that rigidity is everything.
Yeah.
The source says that when that sense of a fixed self loosens, the paradoxes don't just vanish, they stop being threats. They become, and this is a beautiful image, flowers in a garden rather than whirlpools that wreck ships. Contradiction isn't a collapse, it's just another kind of structure.
So the goal of this deep dive wasn't really to give you answers. It was to maybe remove some of those obstructions. So you can just notice what's already here, what's already true, before you try to label it.
And that leads to the final insight from our source about the unspeakable. We've spent all this time using words to point at things that words can't really touch. Self, time, consciousness. We do it knowing we'll fail. Because, paradoxically, staying silent is a refusal to engage.
The unspeakable wants to be pressed against. It wants to be carved into existence with language, even if the carving is clumsy. The failure is part of the speech. The toil itself, that's the path.
The paradoxes only bind the one who has taken a fixed position. So the question for you is this. Notice the awareness that is prior to your name, the awareness that contains all these contradictions, but is contained by none of them.
If you are the water, and the paradoxes are just waves on the surface, who is it that's still looking for solid ground? Thank you for diving deep with us.